Hey guys, welcome back. This is Thelefevrefever, and today we are going to be making a tier list of Amtrak locomotives. And so this is a little bit of a borrowed idea from Amtrak Guy 365, so I'll put them up just in the iCard up here where you guys can see it, and so you guys can watch that, or I'll put it on the end screen so you guys can also watch that afterwards, because this is where this whole idea came from. But one issue I had with his tier list, aside from, some blatant opinions that he had, was the fact that it just kind of didn't include terribly that many of Amtrak's locomotives. Obviously, I think I'm missing one or two, but this is at least 40 locomotives to put and sort into our various different levels here, from S, A, B, C, and to the trash compactor, because they're so bad they don't even deserve D. And so let's have some fun here with this all, and obviously let's remember that these are opinions, so these are my opinions. So let's not start, a fight down in the comments, and let's all have a nice time here, and you guys can feel free to tell me any changes you would make or any information about these locomotives that I neglect to talk about when I obviously rank them, because I'm not an expert on every single locomotive here, so I did not know everything that it did, all the accidents, all the issues, all the good things, all the bad things, kind of like that. But now let's move on and start ranking these locomotives here. Starting off here with the Amtrak SD7, I feel like this locomotive, when they were in their maintenance paint scheme, was pretty good looking. They did serve the rails well, but they were kind of mid and they didn't stand out terribly much, so I am just going to put them in B. So that's kind of just how they are. Now on to the Amtrak SW1500 here. Again, pretty basic locomotive, but I do kind of like the long nose of it, so I guess it'll also just go in B, but they're pretty basic, just locomotives, these two, so they don't stand out too much. Alright, here's now an RS15. I believe that's the image I found of it. And so this is a pretty, again, another basic locomotive, but not terribly exciting. And I do have to say, I don't think this paint scheme looks terribly good, so I'm going to say they go in C tier. They didn't do much for the railroad anyway. Alright, now we are on to the GG1. Now, I love the custom paint scheme that all these locomotives got, and I am slightly impartial, or partial actually, to these locomotives since I own one myself, so I'm going to say it's an automatic A tier on the border of S tier. We'll see how the rankings are. I'll probably adjust them before I get to the end here, just a little bit. But good looking, did well, and it's a shame that not a lot of them survived into preservation, so that was a little bit of a bummer. Alright, now an EMD E9. I didn't find any E6s or E7 images, so those are pretty similar anyways, but these locomotives really didn't, again, do too much like the RS15, so they're going in C. I don't like the paint scheme on them terribly much, so they're just going to rest there for now. Next, we're moving on to the GP40TC. So these locomotives did originally come from Go Transit, and I do kind of like the little sign they have on the front, so that makes them a little bit more appealing, which is kind of funny because it's just left over from, Go Transit, but I feel like it's just kind of funny and dorky, so I guess A tier for them. Alright, now on to the F units here. So this encompasses F7s and F9s. Again, didn't do terribly much, but I do like the bloody nose kind of paint scheme on them, and I do kind of like F units more than I do E units, so they'll just sit in B for now. Alright, now 44 tonner. Let's see. This one's kind of basic, but I really don't like them that much, so really C to the trash compactor level. But yeah, they're kind of okay. They serve well on other railroads, but I don't really like the look of them too much. It's just kind of how they are to me, I guess. Alright, now on to the SD P40Fs. These were some pretty big locomotives with some pretty big issues, and so they were kind of remedied in the end, but the issues they had on the railroad, and they kind of set Amtrak on the wrong foot to start with, so they're going to go into, a C tier. Alright, now, on to the Metroliners. These are a little bit controversial in what they could have done and what they could have achieved in the end, but I feel like they did a lot of good, but then they also did a lot of bad, and they weren't the greatest of locomotives possible, so I'm gonna have to say B, because they did inspire the other passenger coaches that Amtrak still runs now. Alright, now onto the Pepsi Can GP38 here. So if it was not a Pepsi Can, it would be going into C tier, because it's just a freight locomotive and it's kind of, you know, not cool, sleek, or stylish or anything, but the Pepsi Can does save it from being in the lowest level here. Alright, now moving on to a first generation RDC, or Doodlebug. I guess I don't know if these count under that name, but I think they do. I'm really not a big fan of Doodlebugs, or at least the RDCs. They kind of look a little dorky to me, and they look like a little funky, so they're not the greatest. So these guys are probably the closest to the trash compactor, and I will say these guys go in there. And just moving on quickly now to the RDCs with the cab. I do say with the little funky cab that's, you know, fully extended, that does save them, and I actually think that makes them more of a B, because that cab looks a lot nicer compared to just the, you know, passenger coach just, you know, running down the lines. Alright, now onto the SD9. This one's, again, pretty similar, didn't do terribly much, but I feel like if the SD7's going to go up there, I feel like we'll just rate them the same, just throw them right next to each other, so they're pretty basic and pretty similar in that way. So I feel like I have to rate them fairly equally, because there's no real terrible difference in between the two of them, but yeah, there we go. Alright, now, a little bit more obscure, but now we have the General Electric E44, and so this one actually is going to be our first S tier of the day here, and I feel like it's not very, you know, passenger locomotive-esque, but I like it for its, you know, larger style and look, as well as the, you know, black and silver paint scheme, which is kind of not terribly seen as much, because it doesn't have, you know, the Amtrak colors or anything like that, as well as, you know, the fact that some of them are still in service down in Arizona, I believe. Alright, sticking with the General Electric theme here, we do have an E60, and these guys really did not do much. They didn't help, they were bad, they fouled on each other, and I feel like they're not the, you know, sleekest and, you know, most pretty locomotives, and that's why they're going to the trash compactor. It's nice to have a few in preservation, but these locomotives did not do much in service that actually kind of benefited. Alright, now on to the infamous F40PH. And so I don't know how the comment section will react to my rating of them in any sort of way, but I do have to say they're an automatic A tier border to S tier. First of all, for their iconography and being so iconic over the years, but I feel like they're not my personal favorite or one of my personal favorite Amtrak locomotives, but I feel like they do have to be very, very high on the list. Alright, now, here we have the cousin, practically, of the F40PH, but this one is the F69P... Oh, nope, PHAC. And so this is practically just the F40PH, but it's an AC instead of DC variant. And I do have to say, the more streamlined nose of it makes it just look a little bit better than the F40PH. A lot of these names here I have on a side list over the other screen next to me, so I gotta read through so I make sure a lot of these names here, because some of these are, you know, a little bit more obscure in the ways. But I feel like the way it revolutionized diesels, you know, in the coming generations by using AC traction instead of DC traction, which all diesels nowadays all use AC instead of DC. So I feel like it helped, you know, the progression of diesels and just the overall building of engines throughout the world, or throughout the United States at least. Alright, now our next two are going to be pretty similar here with the genset, and I believe it's a GP15. And so these guys kind of but I do have to say, yeah, I'm going to drop him in there. Then the GP15 is a little bit better. Just after looking at some photos, I find the GP15 a little bit better looking, so that saves it from this trash compactor here. But the genset just by itself kind of looks a little, just in my mind. Obviously, you guys can have your opinions and feel free to, you know, share those down in the comments below. All right, now we have the LRC, and I don't think I need to say much, but definitely trash compactor. Definitely trash compactor. Didn't work in Canada, didn't work in the United States, failed in both places, just bad, be gone. Maybe have 1 or 2 in preservation, but bad, be gone. Alright, now the Cyclops, or not Cyclops, Triclops technically, F59 PHIs, not the biggest fan, kind of a little ugly, so we're going to say C. Sorry, pals. The North Carolina livery is not my favorite. It's kind of a little, doesn't fit the Amtrak theme. Obviously, it is a state-sponsored railroad division kind of, but I feel like it's not the best it could be. Now on to the basic version of the F59 PHI. I feel like its liveries that go along with it are a little bit better looking than just the Triclops version, so that puts it up into B and getting close actually to A tier in my mind. But besides from that, it's pretty basic and it looks pretty cool, but it also it kind of stands out from a lot of these other ones, especially with the Surfliner livery. Alright, now time for the P30CH, or Pooch, as it's affectionately known. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of these guys, but I do feel like they are kind of cool looking, just in their own right, especially with the, little bell up top, if you can see that, just on the tip of the finger there. So I feel like they look cool, as well as, they did their job somewhat okay, so they're just kind of in the middle. Alright, now onto the 2 Turboliners here. Turboliner 1, very cool, very 60s looking. I did not mean to put it up there. But aside from that, both turbo trains, or turboliners, turbo trains later on. Turboliners both kind of did nothing really, and I do have to say Turboliner 1 would go up, and just in its styling, because Turboliner 2 is kind of looking, like an LRC, so that drops it down a little bit there. Alright, now onto the turbo train. Kind of cool, kind of funky, little sleek, little not, but I'm gonna have to say in between B and C, so I'm just gonna even it out and go down to, actually no, I'm gonna go up to B. B on this. Looks nice, and it was a cool idea and a cool experiment that obviously happened a while ago, but it kind of was, paving the way a little bit for some of these later, more faster trains, so kind of like it in that way. Same with the other 2 Turboliners. Alright, now onto the Swiss locomotive here. We have a Amtrak RC4. So this kind of, paved the way, obviously, for the AM7. And so they're kind of nice looking, except, it looks a little, cursed, obviously, because it's a Swiss locomotive. And so I'm going to say A. A looks nice, and it paved the way for a very good and useful electric locomotive for the future to come. And now it's French variation, which I cannot find the actual name of its class, so I just put down X996 or 996 and S. It's very, obviously it stands out a lot more than the Swiss does, especially with the French angular windows here. But I feel like it looks a little bit more unique and gets hidden quite a bit compared to some other, trains and locomotives that ran on Amtrak. So that's why I kind of like it, as well as, just the Phase 2 or Phase 3 on the side of it. Alright, now onto the Amtrak Toaster, Instant S, for the same reason that the F40PH is up here. They both served very well. They both did a good job. They're kind of stylish, kind of not at the same time, but looks very iconic, especially for Amtrak. So that's got to stay up there. Now onto the Genesis, is predecessor here. It's just kind of basic, obviously, for a freight locomotive here, but I do have to say, it's kind of, I'd say B. It's just in the middle. It's not terribly great, terribly bad. It was a good stopgap for the time. Obviously, it had some unique liveries over the years. It also had a Pepsi can kind of livery for a while, and now, obviously, this image is of it in, Phase 4. Now, on to the Genesis. This one's just kind of representing all Genesises. And so we're going to have to say S. I've ridden on them. I enjoy the looks of them. And I don't know, they served their purpose well. They've served it a long time now. And I do like the, different variations in liveries that they've had and, the different paint schemes. Obviously, they've been in Phase 5 for a while now, but I feel like they look good, and now they've kind of become the timeless, you know, locomotive that these two down here are. And now I feel like they're replacing a little, or this one's replacing a little bit of their shine now. Alright, now onto the HHP8. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the double-endedness on them. They kind of had some of their flaws and issues in them, but they look nice. They kind of look like, obviously, like an off-brand Acela a little bit, but yeah, they're kind of... Alright, now another big player, we have the Acela S. Just going to say that because it's A, actually. I wanted to say that. It's, the only high-speed train that was in the U.S. for, the past 20 years. Obviously now there's the Avelia Liberty, or the Acela 2, but it served its job well. It's, been reliable for the most part. It's, kind of been an icon of an era, especially in the Northeast Corridor and that kind of region of the States here. All right, on to the Talgos. Talgo 8. C at best. I'd say getting close to the trash compactor level, kind of for, a big boxy front where they're kind of, aerodynamic on one end because they match the locomotive, but then on the other end they're just this big, big old just brick wall, or not literal brick wall, but yeah, kind of just in the way, smacking into the wind. So I feel like they're not the most aerodynamic, so they're just going to rest at C there, might even move down to the trash compactor and be destroyed. Alright, now getting really modern now, we're on with the ACX 64. A little bit of a mouthful, some of these names are. But I'm going to have to say A, replacing the AM7. It's done its job, it's done well. Obviously had a few accidents, but most of these locomotives have had at least a few accidents in their entire life here. But they look nice, they're very sleek, modern. Obviously have had quite a few body wraps over the years now, and they look a lot better. Alright, on to what Amtrak guy 365 really kind of hated, or, played to hate a little bit. But now we're starting with, the Chargers here, so we're getting a lot more modern. And long distance Charger, gonna have to say S. It's replacing the Genesises, and it looks a lot cleaner, sleeker, and it is a lot cleaner. And so it's going to be, a good start for Amtrak for the next, few decades and coming on. Now moving on to its very similar version, the Midwest version of it. Let's just say B. And it's a very nice, looking commuter train, but its liveries are nice, and it just kind of doesn't look the same, and it's a little bit more boxy and, less aerodynamic or sleek as the long distance Charger, so it's just going to rest there. Cab cars, just gonna say also B. They're kind of there. They look very similar. Obviously, they're just practically the same. So there's nothing that terribly makes them outstanding, such as A or S. So they're just gonna rest in B, kind of with the rest of these guys here. On to our final guy here, the Avelia Liberty. No, I'm just joking with you, but if they would have lined up the coaches with the actual locomotive, it would have been probably A, but they didn't line that up, and that's a big gripe because it was easy to fix, and so now it's a B, and so it's just going to sit at B because if they would have just fixed that, because that alignment in between the engine and the first coach is just a little bit off, as well as their nose is a little funky, but if they would have lined that up, it would have been A or getting close to S, but nope, they're sitting here, they're waiting here. Alright, now I'm going to see if I want to change any of these or finalize my choices or anything like that, so I'll see you guys in just a sec here. Alright, now I've made a few changes, such as moving the Midwest Charger up a little bit, as well as moving the GG1 to the next layer. I feel like it's a little bit more of a favorite in my mind compared to some of these other A-class ones, so it moved up. Midwest, I feel like I was a little too harsh on it, so it stayed the same, or actually it moved up, sorry. Turbo Train 2 moved down. I kind of changed my mind on it and kind of, moved down. Obviously, it's an experiment, so you can't be too hard on it, but, yeah. I feel like its correlations with the LRC are a little too close in my mind, so I don't really like terribly much the way it looks here. Obviously, this is all just me doing this kind of partially, because this is all my opinions and my thoughts and everything. Obviously, you guys can disagree on what should be in each little layer here, because everybody's their own human, everybody has their own opinions, so let's not start a fight down in the comment section. But that is this kind of all summed out here. Look at my mouse out of the way so you guys can see all of this stuff here. And so I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching and making it into this video here, because it is going to be a little bit of a longer one as I'm watching the timer here to see how long this is going to be. And so I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!